Hi. Wow. Hello out there in TV land, not TV land, fake, streaming land. My name is Ross. This is an International Art Alliance. We are 6 artists. We meet online around the world. However, our work actually is traveling around the world. Each one of us takes a panel, makes a painting on the panel, sends it to the other artist. They make something on it. We keep going around and around with it until we have this conclusion. We call this the Palimpsest Project. And now I'd like you to meet the members of International Art Alliance in the United Kingdom, Laura Spedetto. Hi, Laura.
Hi Ross, everybody.
In British
Hello.
Columbia, Canada, Rose Williams. Hi, Rose.
Hey.
In Toronto, Canada, Stephanie McLean. Hi, Stephanie.
I'm actually in Quebec today.
You're in Quebec today.
I'm with my mom. Yeah.
Hey, that means Denise Beisman-Pilcher, originally from around the world, originally from everywhere.
Yeah.
And now you're also in the province of Quebec, Canada also. Hi.
I am.
And literally on the other side of the world, Cheryl Wilcox in Australia. Hi, Cheryl.
Morning.
I don't know what time. It's morning. That's what time it is there. And like I
The
said,
next
I'm
day,
Ross.
right?
The next day, I'm Ross. I'm in Los Angeles. And today, I think we have a couple of really cool things to do. We've got a box to open and see a painting. That's Denise has got that. We're going to look at that a little bit later. First, we're going to have a little discussion. We love our discussions. I hope that you're enjoying our discussions too. We're going to talk about concept to canvas. So it's a little bit about how we get there. What's the journey that we individuals take in order to manifest something real in our art? And that reality could be completely abstract, right? Like, how do you get those feelings out there? What happens? I think it was last time we showed sketchbooks and our sketches.
Yeah.
And that's a very direct manifestation of our thinking. How do you guys get it out of your head and onto your canvas? If you go to the sketchbook, and then do you use that to do something? Or does anybody have I think Denise has like the most bated breath look on her face, like, oh.
Yeah, she does.
Oh,
I know exactly what I do. That's why.
Yeah.
For me, it's I work very process based. So for me, I do use my sketchbook when I research new ideas. So there's a bunch of stuff in there, and I will go back to that. But when I know I need to start a new series of paintings, I usually work in batches of 5 or 6 or sometimes 10 if things get out of hand. And I will choose a specific city or area to work with, and I'll just choose whatever I feel like working with the most at that point in time. And then I will go through my photos, and that is what sort of leads what the individual pieces are going to be looking like and what their story is going to be, because that's really driven by the individual photographs that I'm using to build that particular composition. And then it goes through a process of printing and transferring, and then the transfer is actually the moment where it's literally going from the concept that is on the computer to the canvas that is or the wood panel in this case, and then I start painting. So it's a very literal process for me. It's not
so when you're going through your photos, it sparks memories.
Yes.
And then there's a kind of a narrative because you were there.
Yeah. For me, that moment of going through my photos, that is that real connection for me to that place, and those memories will linger throughout me painting the painting. And usually when I do a batch, I will have like a batch of one city, or because I really like just like sitting in those specific memories, and that only works if I do like a batch of like 4 or 5. And also that's why I sometimes end up with 10, because I will go through my photos and I'll there will be specific ones that pique my interest and that I know that are going to be featured in a piece or that I want to feature in a piece. And then while doing that, I'll find another one. I'm like, oh, I really like this one too, but it cannot fit with this one. So I'll just have to make another one. So I'll just create multiples. And then accidentally, sometimes I'll end up with 10 pieces. This time around, I have 5, so it's not so bad.
What an
Your
accident.
paintings are truly telling stories, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, and I also try, because I have, for me, it's personally really the memories, but then secondary, I always look for people to sort of live in the spaces that I create. And I'm very partial to making sure that the people in my paintings actually come from photographs that were taken in that city. And I never really go out specifically to photograph people for the reason of using them. They're usually there accidentally. And I'll just find people that are like interesting or moving or have an interesting expression or like stance or whatever. And then sometimes I'll look for somebody who would fit with them in the story, where I can make up a story about these two people in my painting, where they are going or what they are doing or what they are talking about, even though they might be from completely different ends of the city and have never met before.
It would be interesting if someone recognize himself or
yeah.
About to ask, yeah.
It would be difficult though, because they're usually like a little vague. And I up the contrast so much that that they become very like generic people, I think.
And I think that's a good way of protecting yourself too, to make sure they just look more generic than.
Well, that's a
than
funny
actually...
thing that you say that, because that's a very Canadian thing. Because because in the United States and also in Holland, it's, if you are on the street, it's just public property, so you can just take photographs. It is not a thing anywhere else where you cannot take photographs of other people.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very
interesting. So for me, that was very, very weird that people would make an issue out of it.
Yeah, it would be.
I think it's so interesting how your compositions are informed by the stories that you're, making spatially. I mean, that becomes a whole other layer of everything. That's a pretty incredible feat.
Yeah, I guess. For me, it's very natural. For me, it's just something that always sort of plays in the back of my mind, and it is sort of always connected to my work.
So I think last week you also, Denise, said something about how your photographs are in essence your sketches.
Yes.
So that's sort of how you're bringing the sketches to life in your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sketching process really, that whole process of going through those photographs and sort of trying things out and moving buildings around, that's really sort of the sketching process, as in sketching out a composition or coming to a composition. That's the way I sketch my ideas. On the other hand, I do make the little scribbles that I showed you 2 weeks ago, where I come up with ideas, and then I just write a bunch of stuff, like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to try that, or I want to do a composition with this building, or something like that. So there's sort of 2 different ways of sketching that I use.
Cheryl, you just said, yeah. So here you have some deep thoughts about this. And also you showed us your sketch cards, I guess you might call them. So how does that work for you to bring the thoughts and feelings and ideas that you have into a full-blown piece of art?
I suppose I always look at sketching as being able to see. So whereas Denise will have a camera, I'll have a sketchbook, and it's just taking details, or it's just taking parts of the life or whatever you see. And I suppose it's just a little bit slower.
I don't have a lot of patience.
It's slow, it's a different process because when I
Yeah.
sketch, I have a more deep experience of remembering the place and the time and the people that were around me when I was sketching more than when I took a photograph.
So,
It's
Yeah.
deeper. It's deeper.
I do a lot of sketches just because most days I get down to the beach and I'll just do it as a process. So it's more of a thing that I do when I'm drinking coffee, if that makes sort of sense. So it's just something that I do, and I will use my sketchbook to work out ideas. At the moment, I'm sort of stuck, so I'm just painting because I know that something will come from the edges. But I know if I don't do anything, so what I do is I just sort of lower my standards. I just do a painting. Oh, but it's not going to be great. Oh, who cares? You know. So I just do that.
But how do you get to though from that sketchbook to the actual canvas? What is that process like for you?
Gosh, from that to that. Oh, I tell you what, I'm actually planning an exhibition, and I know what the space is like, so I'm trying to plan my paintings for the space.
yeah.
So I'm
Makes
also
sense.
trying. Yeah, I know that sounds really weird. So I've been
No.
sort of thinking about that idea. So I suppose I use my sketchbook. I usually use my sketchbook to work out a value map. That's my main thing. And I'll work it out for the overall composition. So I make myself do value maps because I find if I do that, it gets in my head. It's like if you have to go somewhere that you don't know where it is, and often you will drive around to find out where it is before the big event because you don't want to arrive not knowing where to go. And so often I will just work out value maps because I usually use areas of value to join things up in my compositions. So I usually use them as pathways. So I usually use them as a pathway to get places. So I actually have to get that piece of value darkness. I'll join up sort of areas to get you from one point of my painting to the next. I suppose that's why I use the value maps for as such. But I'll also use my sketchbook to plan out what I think it's all going to look like, if that helps. But I just like drawing. That's a problem. That's
Can I
why
ask
I
you
do
a
little
question?
cards.
Can I ask you a question, Cheryl? So you say value maps, tonal maps, same thing, right?
Yep,
Tonal
yep.
maps, value maps.
Yep,
And when
yep.
you do that, so when you're planning out your painting, do you, in your sketchbook, do you actually, draw out the circumference, not the circumference, the perimeter, I guess, like if it's a rectangular shaped painting. So
Yeah.
the ratio, yes, you do. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
you like just with a Conti pencil kind of thing, you
Yep.
like darker, lighter, darker, lighter. Neat. And is that how you figure out? Because I know I've seen some of your online, reels where you talk about the eye magnets, which is always so interesting to me. So, the lighter parts that lead to the focal point, right? And it's usually the lighter parts, like the yellow or something, or lighter value parts. So do you plan that out as well in your sketchbook?
Yeah, yeah. I plan out the concept of, I don't know whether they're called eye magnets or not, but I talk a little bit about that in my book. I talk about the telescope inside, and I talk about the concept of how we focus on what we focus on. And we can only focus on a very small space, maybe about an inch, maybe even less than that. And that's why if we have animals or if we have people, we tend to focus on the eyes. And it's usually one eye. But what we're doing pretty much all the time is that we're focusing in, we're focusing out, and then we pick up negative spaces. And then you have a lot of artists who really are interested in negative spaces. I remember Salvador Dali, The Persistence of Memory. There's the big dogs in the background, but it actually looks like a landscape. So we're going from here to here. So I've sort of coined a word like the telescope inside, which talks about how we use our eye like the telescope. And when I'm teaching, I use the concept of what you focus on is what you concentrate on. So you have to become aware of what you're looking at and therefore what takes your attention, which will become your focal point, which is what the artwork is about. So I don't know whether that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But that was,
yes, it does. Yes.
And the other concept that I have is the circle within, which talks about, I suppose it's a fractal universe. So when we first learn to use our pens and our pencils, we use our fingers. and because we're writing, if that makes sense, and so that develops that fine motor control. And what happens is that if you try to get a student to do something larger, they find it very difficult because they have a very short movement with the knuckles, or with the knuckles here. But if you can actually go into the ball joint of the wrist, or if you go into the ball joint of your shoulder, so then you can get some really beautiful sweeping circles or ellipses. So we all have these circles and these ellipses inside of our body, which I think is probably the Tai Chi we talked about. The Asian artist also will meditate, and they will just get the stroke right, and they will actually ghost it. And so I use the circle within, meaning that you have all these really nice movements in your body or in your arms, and how we can use those to actually sweep through an artwork, or how we put it down. Like, so I've got those two, I don't know, the circles within, or the rhythms in your body, and the telescope within. And I thought of another one the other night. It was breadth and depth. Geez, I've forgotten it now. Remember, Alexis would say you've got to go really wide, or you've got to go really deep. Like, you've got to go deep, not wide.
And narrow, yeah.
Yeah, and I had a phrase that I sort of coined for that. I'm talking about the selection of materials when you first start your artwork, meaning that many people often go really wide. They do pastels, coloring in pencils, they do inks, they do everything you can possibly think. And before they know it, the whole space is filled with everything. Sometimes you just have to choose something and go deep, make a decision. I forget what I called it. I wrote it in my phone, because often when I'm out or something, I think it was out for dinner, I remember I was trying to work out a name for it, and I've got the other one was the Yellow Brick Road, which I talked about, which is probably not right neither, which talks about how you follow things within a painting, the Yellow Brick Road. Anyway.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
I forgot what the other one was,
great.
the deep one. You know, it's almost that, it's that concept of, that's right. You know how you have a fork in a road. I was going to call it fork in the road. What do you think? You know, that concept of when you get to a fork in a road, you've got to take it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, you've almost got to like go
have
deep.
to make a decision.
Yeah,
Right.
You've got to go. Yeah, the fork in the road.
The decision point. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I like
Cheryl,
that.
when you described your circle within and all of this, it just sounds so graceful. Like, watching you paint must be just like almost a performance. Watching a performance.
It's sort of back from the teaching days when you're actually sort of scribing on chalkboards, and everybody's got a circle within them, but people don't know that they have. And you can literally shut your eyes and you can just use that ball joint in your shoulder, and it'll be a circle or an ellipse. Anyway.
Lovely.
It's sort of the nature of the universe, as far as we know, how things will work in ellipses and around things, and
Right.
our relationships, and
Yep.
how our Earth spins. And Rose,
Yep.
you were saying you were having a lot of concurrent with things that Cheryl was saying. And last week also, whenever it was, we were talking about our sketchbooks, and you showed us all these different materials that become your sketches. And then also you just mentioned to Denise that you have a similar kind of a historical memory, or how memory plays within your. But I swear, what you call a sketch is like, I have no idea how you then, I mean, first of all, you do alchemy with the material, but then how do you actually like get from one point to another? What happens for you? Are you going through a personal transformation too?
I'm a little bit like Cheryl, where it's always cooking in the background. Like when I'm driving, like the other day I was driving, like we have this, like, I go from Vancouver to the Fraser Valley regularly, and it's an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. And I almost like forgot I was driving, because I was like planning a piece of art. Okay. It was just like, I don't know. It's always, I call it percolating. I've always called it like, it's like maybe from the sketchbook, or from an idea jotted down in my notes or something. I'll think, oh, okay. And then I'll let it go into the background and cook. So, for example, my mom is eating avocados regularly for the potassium. So I asked her to save the pits for me. So my mom had been saving the pits for like a couple of years. So I had a bag of dried up avocado pits, and thankfully I was smart enough to smash them when they were still soft. So they've been sitting there. I mean, I've moved 3 times. Everybody's like, why are you moving this stuff? Can't we just throw it away? No. Sitting in a cupboard, forgotten about, not really forgotten about. So I know I have this bag of avocado pits. And I also know that I had brought a mahogany seed pod from Trinidad, and they're fairly large, the mahogany seed pods. And I wanted to do a piece of art that was relevant to my visit to Trinidad, to the country, to the place. So I thought, okay, well, the avocados are beyond special in Trinidad, and almost everybody has an avocado tree, and we actually call them zabuka, and they're like this big, and I don't even eat avocados here in Canada.
Wow.
I really don't, because they're a completely different thing down there, and they're more like integrated into the culture. So, okay, I got up one morning quite early, and I dumped my avocado pits into a pot with some water, and I boiled them, simmered them for an hour, turned them off, let them cool overnight, and did it again. And I did that with the mahogany seed pod, and I did that with some madder, and I dug around in the leaves I showed you guys in my freezer, and I knew in my mind which leaves I wanted to work with. Sometimes when I'm digging around, I go, oh, I forgot I had that. So I had forgotten I had the ginkgo leaves, but I was very happy I had them because they do a resist usually instead of a print. So they work in your composition in a special way. So I created a botanical print with the leaves, and I actually soaked some in some blue dye, and I kind of did the blue dye ones using the same concept that Cheryl does, because I want to take the eye and move it along, and I kind of rely on color and shape to do that. So I did exactly the same thing with the blue leaves that Cheryl does with her light. So I kind of pushed them and made them go towards my focal point in the composition. So I often do the same thing that Cheryl does, but it's kind of intuitive and cooking in the background.
And sorry, where did the avocado pits fit in?
They were boiled and simmered in water, and they gave me a beautiful substantive dye that is light fast and wash fast. And it's a color I can't even describe the color. It's kind of like between gold and brown and pink. It was a very, it just worked out quite beautifully. And so, yes, it made a natural dye, but that's my pigment. That's what I use as my pigment. So instead of like Cheryl relies on her ultramarine and her blues in her pond paintings, I'm relying on my earth naturally derived colors to create my pieces. And then later I will go in and the same process that Denise uses, where I think, oh, I had that photo experience at the hummingbird sanctuary, and I remember the specific hummingbird, the white-chested emerald, and I had gotten a good shot of the white-chested emerald, and I think, oh my gosh, this guy is going to fit perfectly against the color of the avocado dye and these leaves. So then I just pull him up and use it as my reference, and I actually have a piece that I can show you guys. So this is sort of a quarter of the way through, where I had known I had this blue background botanical print.
Wow.
And so I'm sort of transferring the hummingbird onto the print.
Wow.
That's fascinating. Oh, thank you,
So,
Rose.
and the one thing I want to say is also when I can recall Cheryl, but I love that thing you said about the physicality. My first drawing class in college, we had to do contour drawing, and he put like a pair of skates and then a shirt on something, and we had to do contour drawing, and everyone else was drawing really small. And he had to come behind me and say, Rose, try and make it fit on the page. Because I was like all over the place. And I couldn't, for years, I had a hard time fitting it all in onto the page because I was kind of like into that physicality a little bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are definitely some teachers that teach to draw off the edges of the canvas so that your piece doesn't look like it was just kind of like plopped into the middle of something. And you know, we're kind of coming to the time where we need to look at the package that arrived. But I want to ask both Denise, I'm sorry, Laura and Stephanie, about your process. Do you think maybe you could give us an insight into, like, Laura, your people are there all the time. Your subject matters. You carry them with you.
Yeah.
From country to country.
I was going to suggest if we can talk next week about the process.
okay.
So we can open now the box. That would be more.
I think that's a great plan.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea
plan.
too. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Thank you for that direction. Stephanie, we'll talk next week too.
Sure,
So
sure.
Denise, what do you have to show us?
Well, I actually don't know. I just know that it came from Stephanie because I haven't peeked yet. So
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, me. Oh, yeah.
the only thing I did was cut the tape.
Okay.
So
You're better than me, Denise.
Again, this box looks really, really good.
Peek.
That's a
And it's getting
master
all these,
pack.
look how cool, it's getting all these sticker things.
Wow. Like a
This master pack
piece
box
of,
is
like,
just
master pack. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
great, aren't
holding up so well.
they? Look at these.
So I
Canvas
don't know.
remnants.
Because I don't know, I just know it came from Stephanie. I have no idea how many trips this box has already made. So, but it looks really good.
So Stephanie, how
3.
do
So
Three.
it came from, so it was Lara, then Rose, then myself. And now you.
Wow.
So 4 actually.
Wow. It looks so good.
It does look
All the
really good.
edges in the
Yeah.
corners are
The boxes
completely
really hold
intact?
up well.
Oh, this is exciting.
It's got that plate of titanium to protect
It's
the
nice to have
artwork inside.
confidence in the box.
Yeah,
it really
right?
feels good.
Ooh.
How
This
many
is
times have you sent
awesome.
a piece where you're like, I'm not quite sure. I hope it comes out okay.
Exactly. And you're nervous and anxious that it's
Nervous,
gonna
yeah.
arrive.
You know that I keep forgetting to sign the back of these larger pieces. I don't know why. I'll have to sign them at the end. I don't think I signed it.
This one? You signed this one.
Oh, I signed that one? Okay, that's good.
Yay.
Here, I just
Forgot. Yeah.
Laura and Rose and you.
Sorry. I didn't
You
sign
guys
the
want to
first
see the
one.
front, right?
It's a beautiful back, isn't it? Let's see
It
the
is a
front.
beautiful back. Shall we look at the back some more?
I know.
Beautiful signatures.
It's a treat.
Ooh.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
interesting.
Oh, boy.
I love it. Are they stencils?
Yeah. Stencils with gel medium, and I wanted to, I didn't want them to, I wanted them to blend in with the warm, like the red. So I made it a warm brown, and I thought the piece had such great texture that to me the
does.
piece was, it was really a texture piece. So I wanted to add more.
That is
It
so
is
cool.
really a texture piece. I don't know if you
I
can
love
see.
I love how what you did at the bottom, Stephanie, how it's speaking to what Rose had done on the top with these ethereal pieces of, plant life and how they're floating and kind of cloud-like. And then here's this part that's like, I don't know, like the bowels of the earth, that's fire and soil. And it's just something else.
Yeah, it's cool. It almost looks like they're like symbolic ritual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, is what I thought.
So I have no
Like-
freaking clue what I'm gonna do.
But you're the texture queen.
I know, but I don't know. This is hard.
You are the texture queen.
Well, I don't know about that. There's already so much there, though. I mean,
Yeah.
So once again, we could regard this as being, complete. It's got a sense of completeness and a sense of wholeness to it, even though
does.
it's technically in the middle.
It is
I
in the
mean,
middle.
That doesn't even happen with my own work, so I'm amazed.
Yeah.
In this one, I feel that it's not complete, but I feel like a link, a different link, like the opposite from the top to the bottom. It's like the bottom is like more concrete, more tangible, and more air, dreamer.
Mm-hmm. The top.
Yeah,
The top is more dreamy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree.
like there is something that has to link, I don't know, maybe separate more. It depends what Denise wants to do. But
now that you've said that, I do have a
Yeah.
little bit of an idea, but that's brewing. But I might do something completely different. I don't know yet.
That's the beauty of this project.
Yeah. Yeah, my issue is mostly that I'm not an abstract artist. So
neither am I.
It hasn't to be abstract or something you can adapt to.
I know. I might do that. I might not.
Or maybe you try something abstract.
Maybe I will. I do have an idea now, but I'm gonna read your things first, and then.
So abstract, I feel many times that it's like it to be free because you don't have any bond
Limitations.
Yeah.
Limitations.
I would agree.
Let you to try whatever. Let's see.
I'm excited to start working on it. It smells interesting too. There's a smell to this piece.
Only an
One for the
artist,
promo reel.
only
No,
an artist would
interesting.
say that, isn't it? Oh, I love the smell of this.
Yeah, no, it smells really good. I don't know what you did with it, Rose, but it smells really good.
Well, a lot of my
It's like you're
botanical
kissing it.
pieces, actually, my botanical pieces actually, like the fabric pieces, really have a lovely scent most of the time.
It smells really good.
And there was some research done, and the ones that are done with eucalyptus actually maintain an antibacterial, antifungal quality to them.
Well, I appreciate the smell as well as the sight of this piece. I'm going to enjoy having it around for a bit.
Yeah. Enjoy. Well, we hope you've enjoyed our talk today. We've only covered half of what we wanted to talk about. So that is just how much we want to tell you what we're doing. It's so exciting for us. I love seeing you guys here, my friends. It's really wonderful to spend some time with you. And we'll get together again next week, right?
Yes.
The same bad time. That's a really old-fashioned reference. You people out there don't have any idea what I'm talking about. But let's get together again next week, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.